Morning, good afternoon. Welcome into our Data Plus Women Zurich event, the first one of the year. So we will have some introduction slide about Data Plus Women, ourselves, and then of course Shirley, and we will make a deep dive into work. So Data Plus Women, it's a group to promote women working with or around data. And it's a global initiative, so we have like chapter all over the world. And yes, and we always say that everyone is welcome. It's Data Plus Women, not minus men. It's plus. So we are like two people running this Data Plus Women event, Natalie Richer and myself. So I am a Tableau ambassador and Tableau visionary. I love Tableau, enablement, cooking, traveling, and walking in the forest. And here, if you want to connect with me, you can scan this QR code. You will have, I think this one was my LinkedIn profile. And then we have Natalie. She's a data visualization designer, a trainer freelancer. She's a Tableau ambassador. She loves participating in Ironviz. And she has at her active several Viz of the day. She's very, very talented. Her passion are Tableau, teaching, creating, traveling, and familying. It's difficult to pronounce. And if you would like to connect with her, you can also scan her QR code. And what you have to do for today, nothing. You can just relax. This event is being recorded. We didn't forget to click on record. We will email you the link for the video recording, and please make sure to register maybe if it's not yet done to receive the next event. So please use the chat, write down where you are coming from, and if you have any question, please also tell us, so we will share the question with Shirley. And now we'll let Natalie speak and introduce our muse for today.
Of course, I will. I'm so glad. Thank you, Shirley, to be with us today. So Shirley is a data visualization designer, engineer, and artist. She creates colorful and interactive work that combine art, math, and code that she loves, and often exploring Asian and Asian American experiences. She exhibited internationally, worked with organizations like LOT, actually, Girls in Interactive Entertainment, The Guardian, so she exhibit in solo or in group in New York City and in the United Kingdom, and she was a human in resident at the New York University. She was raised across several countries, and her work is deeply influenced by Christian about identities, movement, and belonging. So today, that's going to be a bit different than our usual Data Plus Woman, because instead of having our speaker making a presentation, we will host a live Q&A style conversation with our speaker about different projects, giving us a chance to deep dive into our experience and insight around those projects.
Thank you so much.
Let me know if I forgot something or if you want to add something. Maybe you want to present yourself as well.
It was great.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about mainly 4 projects. Is there, Annabelle, any question that you want to ask before we go into this different project or general topic or general questions?
Yes, absolutely. I would like first to ask Shirley, because our audience is very shy now, but I'm sure that they will type in some question, is when you look back, Shirley, at your work today, what feel like the common trait that connect all of this project? I'm sure that you can relate.
This is such, I really appreciate this question because it's a very non-basic question. I think that I have two parts to the answer. The first is, I think, something more straightforward, which is there was a few times when friends and others have commented that when they see one of my works, they know it's my work, even if they don't don't see my name somewhere. They're like, they've commented that I have a very distinct style, which was a surprise when I first heard it, because I hadn't put any really a thought into developing my own style and brand when I first heard this. This was maybe 2 or 3 years into starting to make work as an independent data visualization designer engineer. And then I think that and that made me kind of start to think about, like, what is it that makes my work be that people might be able to see and be like, oh, that's Shirley's. And I think it's that I've always kept my typography very consistent. I use a very similar set of colors, and that's because I have like a palette I developed 10 years ago that I still draw from a little bit. So I think that's the first easier, more straightforward answer. And then the second part is, if I think about it, I think that there's another thing that someone has commented, which is they said something like, oh, Shirley, in a lot of your work, you always show each individual data point. You don't aggregate it as often. And that comment has stuck with me over the years, because I've that also made me wonder, like, why is that? And I think that over the years, I've realized that very similar to Georgia Lupi's data humanism, I very much believe in especially data sets that are about human and like about people and human relationships. I really believe in showing every single person, and I don't believe in aggregating them into I just don't believe in aggregating individual stories. And so that actually has over time made me work with smaller and smaller data sets also. I think when I first started my career, it became, because I started at a big data company, I was like, yeah, hundreds of thousands of data points. Yeah. Insights. Sorry. But over time, I've started to really kind of value data sets that are like, and we'll see this with some of the projects, data sets that are only a few dozen, data sets that are sometimes only like 10, but how beautiful and full of story those could be.
No, I like that. I like
Thank you so much.
I was like, I have seen like some of your projects. I have seen you presenting sometimes, and for me, it's like all your projects feel very, very personal. So
Thank you.
that really touch you, and you are capable of touching others. So I will talk about some of your projects that really resonate also with me, even with
Thank you so much.
History. I have another question, but I'm sure that Natalie has also. It's at what point, Shirley, did you realize that data visualization could be a medium for personal, emotional, and artistic expression?
Oh, what another great question. I think that the first moment was, I think the first project we're going to talk about, which is the Legends project. That project is a project about the huge discrepancy between the number of women Nobel laureates and male Nobel laureates. At the time of making that project, it was something like 51 to 800 something. That was a project in which I realized the kind of topics I want to talk about. So that was, I think, the moment in which I started becoming really interested in like representation in data and misrepresentation or underrepresentation or even missing data sets. I started being, I think that was around the time I saw a really, really kind of viewpoint shifting talk from Mimi Onuoha, I think Onuoha, I think. She spoke at IO Festival in 2017 or 2018 about about how, you know, we think, a lot of us think of data as like perfect and logical, and not in our communities, but I think the general impression, but how biased data could be either on purpose or unintentionally. So I think that was the first moment I started kind of questioning and started thinking about because bias tends to be driven by emotion. So that's, I think, when I started thinking about the emotional side of it. And then when I worked on, I think we'll cover it a little bit when we talk about the third project, but when I worked on the census, and there's a one that has like this water drip one. That one was the first time I used my own data to really understand something I was struggling with. And so I think that was the first time I used data to understand my own emotions. So I think that's where the shift started, and where the shift really became intentional.
Okay. That's quite interesting. Do you have a question, Natalie, before we deep dive into the first project?
Yes, but wanted to ask the audience if they do have some question to ask to Shirley now or maybe later, if you're too shy.
Yeah, but you can
Yeah,
just
no?
write it in the chat. We can just write it
Yeah.
in the chat.
Shirley, you were saying that the fact that your work is really consistent in numerous form, and that people recognize your art is based on the consistency on certain things. But while I was able to notice some consistency, and I wanted to know if it was if it emerged naturally from working, or if it's was conscious. The fact that I won't deliver the different project, but for me everything is floating, there is no, it's hard to see the attachment. You will see in the Legend project that's visible as well in the in between. It's floating a bit differently, but it's still floating. The drip all floating, so everything is floating to me rather than to be grounded. So is that a conscious visual decision, or something that come naturally from you work?
Wow, I didn't notice that before. Thank
Okay.
you for pointing it out. So that's a really interesting. Thank you for I don't. So I guess that's the first part of the answer. It's not a conscious decision, but but I do know. I have in recent years have tried to become much more attentive to the kind of art I'm personally drawn to. And I've noticed that I'm always more drawn to art that feels ephemeral. I'm more drawn to art that feels light. There's like specific visual images that I draw a lot of inspiration from. One of them is like a really light curtain fluttering in a breeze, like in the window. Things like I really like how light goes through water. Not all of them are necessarily floating, where I take inspiration from, but I do think there's something about ephemeral, something that feels light and weightless, that I think that I'm very drawn to. And I think that that is probably what's unconsciously coming through in all of my works, because that does remind me of my very first solo show. I was insistent that every single one of those panels be floating in the middle of the room, just like how actually, yeah, every single one of
everything,
is floating from the ceiling, and it makes my life a lot harder, and it makes the people who are my friends that are helping me with my installations, it makes their life harder. I'm sorry to everybody that has helped me with my installs.
It's fine. There is a movement, an art movement called the floating world in Japan. I really like that.
Sorry. I missed that a little bit.
No, it's like in Japan, you have a movement that is called the floating world. And it's like, so maybe you can say that your work is part of it. Like in a poetic way. It's a poetic way of describing.
Wait, what's it called? Floating world?
Yeah, you will see.
Oh, ukiyo-e. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe very subconsciously influenced.
Thank you, Shirley, for
Thank
this
you
answer.
for the question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question and the realization, the personal realization for me.
Well, I have other that I noticed. Well, I think it's the floating, but it's the air as well, the element, the fact that the mountains are floating. But we will see in the different project when we look into it. Yep. And I will give you other insight that I found out looking at your art. Yeah, I was really impressed. Thank you for what you do.
No, thank you.
So maybe we can go like to the first project. Natalie, do you want to release your screen, or you want like to share the first project? Up to you.
Yeah, well, I can try to share my screen with the first project if you would like.
It's fine.
And then I can. Yeah, that's okay for you? You can see?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a whole project there. Okay.
No problem. Absolutely. So do you want to present the Legend project?
I can let you present the Legend project, and then I will have a question for sure. Because I have a question right now.
We all have questions about this project, so don't worry. So the Legend project, it's come from, since 1901, 51 women have been rewarded the Nobel Prize. Maybe it has increased. Maybe the data has increased, but let's say that it's 51 women. And you decide, Shirley, to represent those legendary women as crystal. It's colored a little bit differently depending on the awards that have received, and sized by their influence. That is the number of mention in Wikipedia page. And also when we will go to explore, and its position by the decade that they when they receive their prize. The first question will be like, in this project, how did you choose which data to highlight or not to highlight?
Oh, sorry, which data to
highlight? Why do you choose to highlight this kind of data? Because, for instance, if I would have approached this, I will not have done something so beautiful. So anyway, but if I will have approached, maybe I will have chosen like a different approach or a different data story. So how do you choose to highlight this on this certain way?
Oh yeah, okay. So the start of this project actually was not, for lack of a better word, I was not intentionally trying to make a story about women Nobel laureates. The start of this project was actually that it was part of a project, like a part of a larger series of project called Data Sketches, which is a collaboration with my friend Nadi Bremer. And so for Data Sketches, we would come up with a topic, and then we would both have our own take and make our own project with it. And a lot of Data Sketches projects, most of them were personal projects, and a lot of them were driven by actually more of a technical curiosity. So for this particular one, the topic was myths and legends. And so I actually started with trying to figure out how do I interpret myths and legends? How do I interpret legendary, like what does it mean to be legendary? And so as I was kind of like trying to figure that out, that was actually around the same time that it was 2018, and I became familiar with Michelle Yeoh, who is, I think, a Malaysian actress, I think. Became or Hong Kongese actress, and I became aware of her really large filmography of work, and that made me think of like these women who have done amazing, incredible things, but we might not know about them because they're not mentioned as much in like, pop culture. And that made me think of women Nobel laureates. Like I think I actually went down the rabbit hole of like who are legendary women that I should know about, and that actually landed me in a Wikipedia page of the women Nobel laureates, and that's where that started. And at the same time, around that same time, I was trying to teach myself WebGL, which is the web technology that allows you to make 3D graphics in the browser. And so, because that was the time in which I was trying to learn how to make, I wanted to make physical installations, but I knew that I didn't have any experience thinking in the third dimension. So I was like, how do I practice thinking about installing in third dimension? And so WebGL was the answer. And this is the project that came out of it. So if you don't mind going into Explore. Oh yeah, and so this is so this is the kind of you can either like get close to them to read about each of them, or you can see them arranged by the decades. But I think it was only after working with this data set that I realized how important this data set was to me, in that I didn't expect, that like positioning by decade and seeing how few women Nobel laureates there are in the first half century. And I think that when I realized that was when I decided, oh, let me take a look at how many male Nobel laureates are. And that was when I found out that there was 800, and I decided to put them in as the stars.
Thank you for the presentation of this visualization, Shirley. There is a question in the chat. Jody is interested to know why the crystal, and she emphasizes that they look beautiful.
Thank you, Jody, for the question. I wish I have a better answer for you, other than this was my very first WebGL project, and I didn't know how to make. I didn't know how to make. Yeah, I basically just didn't know how to do much in WebGL, and I think I wanted something that was a little bit more interesting than a rectangle or a circle. And I have found this image that someone painted of a crystal, and it just looks so beautiful. And I was like, oh, this is maybe a shape that I can try and recreate and be able to learn something from recreating it. So it's not a visual metaphor. I do think that you can interpret it however you want, that, and these women Nobel laureates are beautiful, beautiful, like unique. You can interpret it however you want. I'm just saying that I didn't have a data-based reason. It was more like a technical reason.
Thank you for that. We have a lot of questions coming into the chat. So Carla asking, what was the name of the tool that you used?
Oh, yes. It's called WebGL. Stands for Web Graphics Library. And there's quite a few different JavaScript libraries that help like abstract and make the language a little bit easier to use. And so the one in particular I used was 3.js. And I think that's the one a lot of people use when we're working. I think there's some people in the DataViz community that might use Regl more. I think REGL. And then I know that I think Uber came up with a DeckGL to help with like 3D mapping in the web. So those are all different resources.
Okay, one last question about this visualization before we move on the next project, because time is flying. We're having so much. Okay, so Barbara is asking, can you please explain again quickly the meaning of the color here?
Oh yes. The color is mapped to the type of Nobel Prize that they got. So either, and this is arbitrary, I made these decisions. So the physics, chemistry, and medicine I put into natural sciences, and peace, literature, and I can't quite read what that last one is, but economics. Thank you. I put into humanities and social sciences. I have gotten feedback that is very hard to tell the difference between the two of them. Trust me, I know. I've gone through. I went through so many different iterations of colors, and when I tried to make them more distinct, they just did not mesh very well with each other. So this is a balance. I think this definitely leans more data art for me, and data art. The biggest struggle for me for data art is trying to make something look aesthetic and yet still try to stay true to the data.
Shirley, I have a question. Which advice can you give to people when we try to visualize maybe some data that represent maybe population or gender here that has been historically marginalized? Should we focus on the positive, like you did, or it's like you have other techniques or advice?
So I cannot claim to have advice. I can share my personal preference, because I do think that it really depends on each project. I think project to project, I think it really depends on the story that the person is trying to tell, and the maybe the historical context, or I think it depends a lot on the context in which the project is going to be published. So I don't want to be like, here's a sweeping, you should do this. But I do think that for me personally, I like to operate by let me publish something as beautiful as I can, get you into the door, and so that we can have the conversation. It's almost like a bait and switch of you think you're coming in to look at something pretty, and then you're like, oh, but this is about gender disparity. I recently had an installation I did with a friend that was ceramics, and she designed all of the ceramics shapes. And people are coming into the installation being like, wow, this is so beautiful. And then they start reading into what it is, and it's about climate change. And they're like, oh, I feel like and they're like, oh, this is now kind of really depressing. But we're like, we still got you in the door. So I think it's whatever I think that I always believe that the first step is getting someone's attention. So if you can't get that person's attention, no matter how good or beautiful, no matter how well you've done something, it's a non-starter if you can't get that person's attention.
Indeed.
Thank you. Yes, and that person attention, you used it, because even in the visual digital project, you ask the audience to be there and to interact really with your project. This is the case for Legend, and this is the case as well for the Hong Kong artist woman. While we're talking again about women, so your unconscious choice of making crystal, really hard material, and now mountain, really hard work about a woman floating, that's amazing. But that's unconscious, that's just beauty. But this is my own interpretation. So thank you for making me feel those interpretations.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
do you want to present this project before?
Yeah, sure.
Annabelle or Shirley?
Yes, the Hong Kong project artist is, we can say, I think that you even say it somewhere, that it's an extension of the Legend project.
Yeah.
So it's based on, for audience, on a list of Hong Kong women artists with English article on Wikipedia. And as Natalie will deep dive into the view, you will see that it celebrates the accomplishment of Hong Kong artists and address the underrepresentation of women by beautiful mountain shape. So I think it's quite poetic, I will say. And yes, I really like the mountain landscapes. So of course, like I think bigger the length of article, like bigger the mountain is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have like a very philosophical question for you.
Okay. Okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah, this beautiful project feel a little bit of, I would say, restorative. Do you think that database can also act as a form of cultural preservation?
Oh,
That's what I think that you are trying here to say. Hey, this woman exists. Look at how the impact and how they shape the world by their work. That's what I think, that sometimes we do that to remember them, or like to find them from history and back to the present. So that was my interpretation.
I really, really appreciate that interpretation. I think that, again, wow, a lot of my answers are I didn't do that consciously. I think I think I just tend to do projects where if I have a curiosity and then kind of reflect on it later of like, oh, why did I do that? And this particular one was actually commissioned by a art museum in Hong Kong, and hence the and then we collaborated on the topic, and they were like, do whatever you want as long as it's about Hong Kong. And so I kind of asked them, how do you feel about highlighting women artists and their representation on Wikipedia? So it's not particularly about this project, but there is one time I remember the very first physical installation I worked on was with two others, Christina and Tina, and we made essentially we did it was actually also based on legends, and we did an installation of women in computing as orbs floating in the physical space, and this was exhibited at New York University at one of their end of semester shows. And I still remember the story that they told me about how a female computer science professor from the university had come by, has seen the work, and had commented about how it gives her hope that perhaps one day her work will be remembered and honored in this way. And I think that was a moment in which I realized, like, oh, these things that we create, especially when I think that was a moment I think I really realized like the impact that these works could have, of like even just, because it's not from a implementation perspective, or from a data perspective, none of this is hard. All we did was go on Wikipedia. Like the data is there. It's always been available. But I think it's the fact that we took that and we actually like brought it out of the webpage, or in this case, like I think we just presented it in a different way. That I think something about calling attention to it, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, I'm going to think about that a little bit more, about data visualization as cultural preservation. That is such a great nugget. And I think that I'm going to think a little bit more on it, about like, what is the place of these works and what do they contribute? Yeah. Inconclusive answer. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I mean, it was a little bit tricky, or a little physical, and I really love also some time that it gives much more visibility when the stories represent true data than it is when with a traditional narrative or written blog. Yeah, it's more impact. I think that one is we try to visualize the data instead of doing a traditional artwork, work. But that's, maybe I will wait to see if you write an article about it.
I feel like this is something that's going to be in the back of my mind for a while. In a year or two, maybe it will have become a full thought. But yeah, there's something. Will you give me until the end of this our time together, and maybe I feel like maybe I will have arrived at some small thing by then.
It's okay, Shirley. We can meet again.
Yeah, we can meet again.
So, Natalie, do you have some questions? The audience is quite quiet. Please ask question.
Yes, is there any question from the audience? Yeah, they're all you're super awesome, beautiful. So
Thank you.
thank you for the comment. Well, you're asking a lot from your audience in your project. Normally, data visualization, sometimes they're like so ephemeral that you don't have, they exist for like, and you look at it like for 5 seconds. There is the data visualization thing where you say, okay, you just have 5 seconds, you need to understand what it is. But here you guide the user, you keep the user, you keep looking at your full story, and you really engage with the audience in this kind of this two project deeply.
You.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else on this project? Annabelle, do you have any other question that you want? Or Shirley, do you have anything that you want to add on this specific project?
So actually, not about this specific project, but about what you say about, we have 5 seconds of someone's attention. And actually, that is a lot of why I started becoming so intrigued by physical work. And so I think the next thing we're going to talk about, the Senses and Sentiment article. If you don't mind just scrolling through the Senses and Sentiment article, I think it's that speaking of, asking a lot from the audience, I became really curious about, or maybe selfishly wanting more of someone's attention. And so instead of, a digital work where I might only get someone's attention for 5 seconds, if I can get them into a room, how would that change their experience of the pieces? So this is kind of what I talk about in this article, is my foray into physical data experiences, and how I think my audience's experiences have shifted, and how my own experience with these works have shifted my own understanding of the stories and the data that I'm trying to tell. So yeah, this is the.
Yeah, you're really adding some dimension here when you come with data physicalization, because you adding like, of course, the 3D dimension, the third dimension, but you're adding much more than that, because you're adding some noise. You talk about that fan. You're adding some sense, I guess, with the ink, and so you're playing with all the sense of the visitor now, because they're coming and experience something, and you keep them experiencing them, so you keep the attention because it's moving and it's still floating.
Yeah, they're all floating. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think every sense except taste. That one I have not yet cracked personally, and I think, but I think yes, exactly as you said. When I first started working in the physical, I thought it was only about, how do we lay out these data points in the third dimension? Like, how do we, lay them out in the room? And as I started working on these projects, so for example, this particular project is, speaking of very small data sets, I think it's like only 10, 14 rows. And the numbers are the number of documented Chinese immigrants into America. And so each ink drop represents some few hundred immigrants, I think. And over the course of, I think, 2 hours, it drips the ink onto this sheet of paper, sheet of fabric. And the thought process behind this one was, you know, I think a lot of us immigrate to America in search of that American dream. And I think some of us are able to find it and some of us don't necessarily. And we find a reality that is maybe quite different from the expectations. So the idea was, instead of landing on like something calm, the ink drops land on this piece of fabric that are kind of roiling a little bit chaotically. And so none of the ink land where they thought they would land. And the ink themselves are Chinese calligraphy ink. And something that I didn't, as Natalie was alluding to, was that they don't, for anyone that grew up in China or anywhere where they teach calligraphy, this smell is so distinct that I had quite a few visitors come into the room and be like, whoa, this is so nostalgic of a smell. And I think that this is something that, working on these physical pieces has really taught me that working in the physical world is not just about placing things in the third dimension. And there's a lot of meaning that we can imbue into even the material choices that we make. And that has been a really fun challenge.
So you're saying that you're making more conscious choice in your data visually. Yeah, that's the case.
Yes.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So
And I actually think when we were talking about those two physical, or sorry, the first two digital pieces, and my answers are like, I don't know, vibes is the reason why I chose crystals or these colors. And I wasn't really questioning why I was making these projects. It was just kind of like curiosity and for fun. I think that going back to art school, I went back to grad school for art. And I think that what art has taught me was to slow down. And what art and physical, as I mentioned in this article, is it forced me to slow down and question why I'm making these projects and making these choices, and really kind of be more intentional about the projects I choose. Yeah.
Oh, I think I really like this project. It's one of my favorites. I will say that.
Thank you so much.
No, in the article is quite very interesting for audience that maybe didn't read it. I advise you to read it. I like when you describe that you go back to school journey, what you did, how you approach this physicalization. And this project Untitled, We Still Land Home, I think it really touched me because I'm also an immigrant kid. My parents were Spanish and they moved to France. Maybe not so far away like you did and your parents did, but you still, it's exactly like you described, you don't know where you land. And I thought that using the ink, the Chinese ink, to represent the immigration, and the wind to represent like the struggle that you can face, it was fantastic. It was very deep. I really like it.
Thank you so much.
You already answered like some of my questions. So why do you believe physical project is the best way to convey feeling and emotion? And you said like the smell of the ink, it's also very strong. I was not at your exhibit, but when I saw that, I know what the ink smell like because I play a lot with it, and I have the feeling that I smell it the same.
Oh,
it's very interesting.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that experience with me. Yeah, I think that there's only so much we can feel from just vision. And even like, I'm so glad you mentioned the wind. And, as soon as people come into the room, they can feel the wind. And I think that wind and sound, I think being in the room when sound, like big sound is being made. Not that I work with sound that much in my work, but I love art that is sound based also, because sound is vibrations, and vibrations literally move through your body. And that's why music helps us feel emotions. All of that, I think, when I start working in the physical is where, you know, we're not just listening to something in our headphones, we're not just seeing something on the screen, but like there's something that is actually enveloping us. I think that that's really powerful. Having said that, I'm also very aware that physical is extremely inherently exclusive. And so I also have been thinking about like, well, how do we make that a feature, not a bug, of like, how do we make these physical experiences much more rooted in the like the local community? It's something that I'm still very much working on, because I know that, you know, these are things that only a very small percentage of people can ever see as they're intended.
That's right.
Okay. Do we have there is question from Vani, which is, well, here we in data physicalization, but has your practice changed with the arrival of generative AI?
Oh, sorry. Let me. Can you repeat that?
Yes. You can see in the chat.
Yes.
Can you see in the chat? Practice
Yes, I
change
see
with
it
the
now.
arrival of generative AI?
Oh, okay. So that I have a very long answer. So
Oh.
let me.
Should we keep it for the end?
So I'm gonna save that.
Okay, we
Because
save that for the
only have-
end. Okay.
because we only have 2 minutes.
Okay.
And I have a 5-minute presentation that I want to make for the last.
Yes.
This is my solo show that I got to have in Tokyo last fall. I have a 5-minute talk on it, and so I would love to just kind of
Yes.
present that. It seems like and I
I
think I
stop
need to be able to share
sharing
screen.
and let you share and talk about this project, Shirley, right?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks to you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. And I hope you don't mind that I'm just going to read off of my script for this presentation. And okay, so it's a full talk, a 5-minute talk. So I'm going to read it, present it like a talk. So you don't need this part. But I was born in the Philippines and grew up in China, Japan, and the United States. And perhaps because of this, I've always struggled with defining home and a place of belonging for myself. I worked through these struggles with In Between, my first solo show in Tokyo. With it, I ask, in an age defined by global movement and digital interconnectivity, when we can grow up thousands of miles from our ancestral homes, how do we define home in our places of belonging? I started conceptualizing this show last January at the same time that I started seeing endless reports of mass deportations. Those reports filled me with a hopelessness and a rage, a constant reminder that even after decades of living in this country, that to be an immigrant is to be in a fragile position. To me, the immigrant experience is a series of uprooting and rerouting, which is why I chose to represent each year that I've lived in the country as tree rings, with the US being my biggest and longest, and silkscreen them with watercolor on the most delicate, fragile washi paper I could find. Deportation is a 2-hour performance piece that drips water on my journey, according to Google search volume for the term deportation worldwide. The water drips slowly where the search volume is low and faster where it is high, creating an uneven staccatoed melody. And by the end of the 2-hour performance, the delicate washi paper is torn where my time in the US used to be. And it begs the question, how do we define home when tomorrow can feel so fragile? In search of an answer in my own definition of home, I interviewed 7 others with similar backgrounds to me. Asian diaspora who grew up in a Western country and chose to move to Tokyo in their adulthoods. Across many hours, I learned about all the places that they've lived, about their motivations for each international move, as well as how they define home and places of belonging. I then silkscreened each of their journeys and mounted them perpendicular to the wall, accompanied by an excerpt from their interviews and a photo that reminds them of home, so that when you read each of their definitions of home, you can focus on just that one person. But when you turn around to study their journey, you can see all the others overlapping behind them, a reminder that they are in that their journey, that they and their journeys echo each other. I learned a lot from each of their answers, but I still struggled with my own definition of home. So in this final piece, I invite the visitor to participate in the art by adding their own journey and their own definition of home. And when they submit their answer, their journey is projected onto the washi paper and animated in front of them, and their definition of home is paired with another visitor's who may have grown up in completely different countries, yet their answers are the most similar. And through this, I've come across some really beautiful answers, like E, who wrote that home is found in the liminal space between my family and friends in the States and those in Japan. And their answer was paired with S's, who answered, home is a concept that does not exist in the same timeline. A part of me visualizes home in Sydney and yet another in Shanghai in the context of when I was growing up. At the same time, I love that the show was able to normalize not having an answer just yet, because even now, after all of this, I still don't have one. But through the show, I learned about myself. I create art to understand myself, and I show my art because I yearn to be seen and understood, and for others to feel seen and feel understood. Because when I share my art, that physical location becomes my temporary place of belonging. So thank you for sharing this brief, beautiful moment of connection and belonging with me. Thank you.
It's very beautiful. I love
Thank you.
the term in between. Because I always used to say that I don't feel myself anywhere, either in France or in Spain. And in between is like so spot on. I really, really love it. And it's true, at the beginning when I saw your art, I saw like the impact of this project. I mean, I really saw the impact and how strong it was, but it felt at the first glance like a little, how I can say, like louder, like can you are like kind of a whispering the story, you know, in comparison of the Untitled that seems like much more stronger, the visual, but the impact are both very impactful and on the same level. But it is true that it's fun to see. Oh, it looks cute. Look, you know, like what I mean. And then, chuck, you grab my attention. You put me in the-
Thank you so much.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably my most personal piece I've done. And I got to present this at the Asian Art Museum at the beginning of this year. And I was an absolute nervous wreck the day before. I probably was, I would say that preparing this talk, I was just as nervous for that talk as for my first talk 13 years ago, because it was so personal and yeah. But thank you so much for.
Yes, and Shirley, we start at the beginning before everyone arrived. You wanted to mention why you decide to present it on the vertical way and not hanging on the
Yes, actually, thank you for the reminder. Wow, I've already forgotten.
Yes, it's fine.
So the pieces, the washi paper, the silk screen and the tree rings and the washi paper, the frames are mounted perpendicularly to the wall. I think I'll try and show it again. And I actually struggled for a really, really long time about how I wanted to mount the piece, because I wanted a way for people to be able to see both sides of the frame, because I wanted one side to be that individual person's story. So you would have to literally, move your body to read their story, and then you would come back and see the other side, which was supposed to be the global context. So what you see faintly down here, this is actually the annual GDP per capita for each of the countries that person has lived in. And what you can actually see from this is that the area chart is very low in their childhoods, and as their parents move from country to country, the GDP per capita rises until in their adulthoods, their international moves are sometimes even like the international moves they make is a drop in the annual GDP per capita, because I think that their parents were able to establish a different adulthood for them, where they could make these choices regardless of the wealth of the country or the productivity of the country. And so I wanted people to be able to see one side or the other. And I really struggled a lot with how do I place, do I place it away from the wall so that people can walk around it? But then does that mean I need 10 podiums? Because how I didn't want to hang things from the ceiling again. I've done that way too many times. It's so much work. And then I was actually swiping through Instagram one day, and then I saw someone's piece that was mounted perpendicularly to the wall, and I was like, whoa. And that was a moment. I didn't know that there was a piece in the Louvre that does that. That's so cool. But yeah, that was a moment. I was like, this solves all of my, this basically hits everything I want to do with it. Yeah.
And I between. Sorry. It's also in
yes. Yes, and it's that people literally have to go in between the pieces to look at them, and that's another thing. Speaking of physical work, that I've come to really appreciate is thinking about how the person will move through the space, and where do I want them to move comfortably through, and where do I want them to struggle a little bit, because in that struggle they'll hopefully remember the moment a little bit more. So making you have to do this and have to do this and get a little bit uncomfortably close to the wall, I think is an interaction and an experience that was very much intentional. Yeah. I'm looking at the chat. Thank you so much for all of the really nice words. I know I have 2 minutes, so I did want to answer that question about the generative AI. Yes and no, if my practice has changed or not. I think that it has changed a lot on the coding side, where I don't necessarily vibe code, but I do get a lot, the way that I search documentation has completely changed, in that I don't search documentation anymore. I just use GitHub Copilot. But I think that it has, I think the way that I design my visualizations is still as they used to be, in that my data visualization process is exactly the same as pre-generative AI. I think that the only place that it's really changed is that it feels like things that I found technically difficult before, I feel like those doors have opened, because I can just ask, doing it. It used to be that what I don't know, and that's intimidating. But now it feels like what I don't know, I can ask, and then be able to know how to create. So for example, for that last this last piece where, where this is matching the answers for home, I wouldn't have known how to do that if, I hadn't had, so to be fair, I asked a friend how to do it. But then like but the actual implementation of it, it was definitely augmented by Claude Code. Yeah, I have so much more to say. I'm trying to wrap it up. I'm very, very excited about intentional uses of language models. I try really hard not to use Gen AI in any of my art. I try really hard not to use it in image generation, video generation. I try not to use it for sound or music generation. I try to keep it to a very minimum for writing. Anything that is very meaningful to me, I write myself. I will never use AI to do that. I do ask you AI to summarize my blog posts for like metadata description. So I try really hard not to use Gen AI. Yeah, and I think that the piece of advice that I keep to heart is I heard an artist say, find what is sacred to you and don't let AI enter that. You can, use AI however you want, but like find that sacred space, and don't let AI enter that part. So that's what I try to. For me, the sacred space is when I create my own art. So yeah, and then outside of that, I'm still struggling with the environmental impact and all of the ethical concerns. That's something I'm still trying to work through.
I love that.
Thank you so much.
That I will apply the same advice. I will use this advice also on my side. Natalie,
The sacred space.
Exactly, the secret space that no one's know about, not even AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Natalie, do you have another question? It's your moment.
No, because it's time, I guess.
It's time. Come on.
We will have another time to discuss any other question that we might have. So if the audience has any question, I'm not sure, Shirley, how much time do you have still left? You don't.
Oh, I can stay for a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
think
if there is any question from the audience. I don't
Shirley,
see.
I have one question while the audience is trying to find a question. If someone leaves today this session remembering only one thing about data storytelling or something apart from Gen AI, don't invite your private space, what should it be?
Oh, okay. One thing for someone to take away about, was it data
storytelling or whatever, or physicalization or whatever.
I don't know if I have anything profound to say. I think it's just, I guess I'll think of it this way. This is the advice I would have given myself 10 years ago, which is data visualization is a design practice. And because it's a communication. Storytelling is communication, and communication and writing is a practice in empathy. So to always keep the audience in mind and how they'll experience the piece. I know it sounds very basic, but this is something that 10 years ago I would not have realized, because 10 years ago, all I cared about was having fun with the tech. Because I think that data viz, with all the tools that are out there these days, it's very easy to make something. But at the end of the day, the story and the message and what it is that we're trying to tell the audience and having empathy for how they'll experience it is something that I'm still working on. Yeah.
very successfully, because you already embark us in your story or your point.
Thank you so much.
I really like it.
Thank you so much.
It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
meeting you, Shirley, today. Natalie, last chance. The audience is very shy.
Yes, I'm taking the last chance. What are you working on? What is going to be your next project? Anything new that you want to share, or you can share now or not? Or
Oh, okay. So this is something. Okay, so what I'm currently working on is I made a really big life decision a month ago, which is that for 2026, I'm going to take on as many client projects as I can, whatever they may be, as long as I can do a good job, and save for 1 year's worth of living expenses in Tokyo. And when I hit that savings goal, I'm actually going to shut down my client studio, my client facing studio, and go all in on the art. So that's my life
that's the
decision.
plan.
So
Okay. Oh,
that
great.
is my so I'm not working on any external facing projects right now. I am for the foreseeable future going to go all in on the client work so that I can hit my savings goal. And then hopefully I can hit it this year, and then I'll be able to shut down my client studio on its 10-year anniversary.
And like July Lee says, we will see you in Tokyo.
Thank you so much. Yes, perhaps see you in Tokyo. I'll be going back this weekend.
Enjoy your time. Thank you very much, everyone, for
Thank
joining.
you.
We will post a recording very soon, most probably tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.